ॐ समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्. Okay, so today we go to verse 32. We start with, and we have done the yagnas, the 12 different yagnas that were prescribed to the seeker, and then evam bahuvidha yagna vitata brahmano mukhe karmajan vidvitan sarvan evam gyatva vimokshase. It says, thus innumerable sacrifices lie spread out before Brahma. Brahma, literally at the mouth or face of Brahma. Know them all as born of action, and thus knowing you shall be liberated. Now, see, generally, when a person who is not familiar with Vedantic mystical language, and also somebody who is just a modern university educated, he tries to logic out. Now, Sanskrit is difficult to translate into English exactly, and especially when you try to fit clause into clause and try to break up the sandhis, it sounds a little strange. But one has to understand what exactly the meaning is. Now, here he says, thus innumerable sacrifices. These innumerable sacrifices, of course, are the 12 yagnas he is talking about, but they are not innumerable. Innumerable means those yagnas, each one of them can be done in various ways. Really, like say dan, dravya dan, dravya yagna. How many different ways it can be done? Unimaginable. You can even give in charity love. You can give in charity service. You can give in charity wealth. You can give in charity anything at all, right? Which helps anybody else. That is what dravya. So, like that, dan, and not only dan, but each yagna can be subdivided into various, and that is why he says innumerable. Thus, innumerable sacrifice. Sacrifice here means yagna. Lie spread out before Brahma. Now, where do they lie spread out? They lie spread out in the Vedas. That's what it means. Because these are listed in the Vedas. So, in all the 4 Vedas, they are spread out, scattered here, there, and everywhere, all kinds of sacrifices. So, we say lie spread out before Brahma. Before Brahma, and literally at the mouth or face of Brahma. That means almost leading to Brahma. Right at the doorstep of Brahma, they will take you. So if you follow these 12 yagnas, or either or even one, or 2, 3 together, they will only serve the purpose of leading you right up to the door of the Supreme. Brahma, the Supreme Reality. So that is the purpose of all these. Know them all as born of action. Born of action means that they all are self-effort. Each one has to be done with effort. They are quite difficult, mind you. Each one of them is very difficult to do, but they are to be done with self-effort. Now, he is also hinting that without self-effort, nothing is absolutely possible. Not even in the material world is it possible. Therefore, he is also hinting to to Arjuna. Krishna is hinting to Arjuna that you better wake up. You have to do your duty, you have to perform action and selflessly. Without that, there is no go. You will gain nothing. So he says that all these yagnas are born of actions, and born of action means, see, action can never get cancelled by action. Please understand. कर्म से कर्म समाप्त नहीं होता. Okay? Finite action will always gain you finite result. So how can it take you to the door of Brahma? It only means that these actions slowly purify the mind and intellect of the seeker, and when he gathers the Shuddha Antahkaran, he becomes ready to receive this knowledge. And once he gets this knowledge, he is ready for the last step. And the last step is merging into Brahma. Now you see, in this verse, the question that arises in everybody's mind is that how come that he is listed 12 he is listed, and then here he says innumerable. So even if they are innumerable, every action cannot have the same result. So how is he saying this? See, but all the 12 activities listed here, they are all means and they are not the end. So as they say that all roads lead to Rome, it is the same meaning here. That Antakaran Shuddhi will happen with any one of these yagnas, all the yagnas together, or a combination of them, or one or two of them. So it is just that they have been listed in the Vedas, they are not Krishna's original idea. So also the second thing over here is that they say maybe it is one grand big bluff by Krishna only to motivate Arjun. Please understand that the Vedas have been given out by different saints and rishis over centuries. It is not it has got no single authorship. In fact, all those who have given out the Vedas, they totally they do not even claim authorship. You know that till today people are wondering who wrote the Vedas. Wrote, quote unquote, because it was an oral tradition. So who gave out the Vedas? Nobody knows. And that is why they are known as Brahma Vakya. They are known as Brahma Vakya because it is believed that the Lord himself, through these various teachers, has given out these rules and given out these yagnas. Now, still, you doubt that what could be the motive of these people? Think carefully. If somebody is not even claiming authorship, not even giving his name to what he has given out, how can he have a motive? He is totally free of any motivational action. So bluffing cannot happen. Bluff only that person does who has readily believe a neighbor's gossip, isn't it? Somebody even over the phone tells you some gossip, and you say, "Oh yeah, like that, really? Oh my God!" And then that person says, "I'm not sure." And what do you say? No, it must have happened since you are saying it, and so many people are saying it. Those people are as foolish as us. Yet we believe them. And you do not believe the intention of these great grand rishis who have got no ego, not even an authorship they claim. Nowhere have they mentioned their name. How can they have a false motive? So these are selfless saints. They chose anonymity, and they have given out such profound, deep works which will elevate and benefit mankind. What a selfless great deed that they have done. Now come to the next verse. The next verse says, Shreyan dravyamaya ज्ञानयज्ञः परन्तप सर्वं कर्माखिलं पार्थ ज्ञाने परिसमाप्यते. Hmm? Now, I will read the translation. It says, superior is knowledge sacrifice. He calls it, see the English translation, knowledge sacrifice has got no meaning. The Sanskrit term is Jnana Yajna, which he is using over here. See, Jnana Yajna in the first line. So, superior is Jnana Yajna, to sacrifice with objects. Now, in all the 12 yajnas, huh, main 12 yajnas, he has listed sacrifices of objects. Now, those sacrifices are done by the mind. Okay, they are not objects really. You can sacrifice objects, but mind sacrifice means get detached to objects, emotions, thoughts, situations, people. So when you distance yourself, you get the right perspective of looking at everything in the world. Because any calamity that comes, you lose nerve because you think it is permanent. It is not permanent. That calamity itself, when the Lord decides that this is now good for you, this is how your life will go now, and this will benefit you, that situation comes to you. There is always a flip side to every single situation, even to this lockdown. There is a lot of people who are saying that because of COVID, so many things that they could do in their homes, in their families, they came closer to the families. Some people who never attended satsang because of the distances they had to travel to attend those satsangs are attending them at home. And there are so many other things. You get so much more time, isn't it? So a tragic situation, yes, definitely tragic, but that situation has turned out as good for many, many people. So here it says that all your sorrow-ridden values. See, he says, "Oh Parantapa." Parantapa, I have told you beforehand. Parantapa means the scorcher of foes. It is a title of Arjun, Parantapa, and the Lord is addressing him as Parantapa. That means be brave enough to destroy the enemies that are within you. Destroy the enemies that rise from within you. And those enemies are attachment to things, people, situations, objects. When you identify with them as your own, belonging to the body, you are bound to suffer. The sorrows will come in. Now, in the Gyan Yajna, what is offered in the Gyan Yajna? In the Gyan Yajna, you offer your desires, your vasanas, because you realize that those have got no meaning. They have got no meaning at all. When your body has no meaning, it is just made of those 5 elements and will go back to the 5 elements. What about things that belong to the body? Tell me. All the things that belong to the body, not only objects, but even people. You think, my son, my daughter, my husband, my father, my mother, my family, my sister, isn't it? Think about it. So, Jnana Yajna, once you do these other yajnas, when you come to the Jnana Yajna, that is to sacrifice with objects, O Parantapa, harasser of foes, all actions in the entirety, O Partha, culminate in knowledge. Actions can culminate in knowledge only when the Antakaran is absolutely Shuddha, absolutely pure. It is only at that time when, with no motivation, good or bad, you are performing a karma, no selfless desire, you are performing a karma, that karma gets burnt out totally. And all your sorrows, all the dreamer's sorrows end when he gets the knowledge that he is not a dreamer, he is the waker. The money that you lost in your dream, does the sorrow of that loss remain once you wake up? Think about it. when you realize that you were not the dreamer. So, if you were not the dreamer, what about the dreamer's money that he lost? It is a ridiculous idea, right? So, when you say Gyan Yagna is knowledge given by the teacher to the very eager, receptive students who will assimilate it in the system. Once the knowledge is gained, you cannot anymore have any sorrow. All sorrows end in Jnana Yagna. And the 12 Yagnas are the preparation of the mind and intellect equipment to receive this knowledge, because all cannot receive this knowledge. This knowledge and these ways of living that the yagnas teach are a very high and elevated way of living. They are not for everybody. They are not for the common man whose mind is full of desires and impurities, full of agitations and sorrows. He cannot walk this path. He is unfit to walk this path, right? So only when his mind is totally pure and he receives the knowledge, he sacrifices his old personality into the fire of knowledge. That means there is a complete transformation of individuality. The old individuality burns out in the fire of knowledge, realizing that this is not my true self. And he realizes his own self. So that is the gaining of a totally new personality, a totally new perspective on the world. And that is why anybody who has gained this knowledge and is living this knowledge is called a Dvija. Dvija is a twice born. English translation, twice born. You only get born once, you will say. Yes. Once you get born from your mother's womb, and the second time you get born when your old personality, old values, old ways of thinking, your selfish, vulgar desires all die away with that personality, and a new self is born. A new self who understands a higher purpose of life, who lives nobility, who is trying to tune up to the teacher and is totally dedicated to lifting himself by himself. That new personality is the second birth. And that is why a Brahmin is called a Dvija, not by birth. As Krishna has also said, Guna Karma Vibhajayo. He has created these four classifications of human beings. Guna Karma Vibhaja. So here, when you can call yourself a Dvija, you are a totally selfless person, living very high values, living selflessly to the service of humanity, and you have got the knowledge of reality and you are trying to live that knowledge, then you can be called a Dvija. And therefore, in this verse, he says, Jnana Yagna is superior to Dravya Yagna. Dravya Yagna cannot take you up to the door of reality. Jnana Yagna can take you right there. So when you participate in Jnana Yagnas, Chinmaya Mission that does a lot of Jnana Yagnas, Gurudev started them, and that was the teaching of Gita and Upanishads. Upanishads used to take early morning, very early morning, even when it was dark. After our meditation and Upanishad class was finished, after that the sun used to rise. So Upanishads were taught early in the morning by our teacher when the world is totally peaceful. There are no agitational waves anywhere around in the world. And the mind also, the bloodstream also, everything is quiet and peaceful. It is only in such a situation when a realized master is imparting knowledge to a totally prepared student's mind, a mind prepared with all these yagnas, you know, it is only then that the transference of knowledge takes place. It is not taught, it is conveyed from one heart of the teacher to a prepared heart of the student who is totally in tune with the teacher. Otherwise, it will never happen. You know, if you don't tune up a musical instrument, there are discordant notes that come out. So, here, when a student is not tuned up, or it will be all discordant activity. Now, giving up of attachment to materialistic objects and values is jnana of your real self. Only then can you do that. So, talking of attachment, when you are full, talking of detachment, when you are full of desires, is useless. How can you? You cannot do it. It's got no meaning. Now, he says, jnana karma sannyas, that means swapna karak cannot be a karak. The jnana, that karma can only take you to another karma. This jnana, when you get, then you take sannyas from karma. Sannyas from karma does not mean giving up karma. Carefully, huh? Every chapter of the Gita, Krishna has said, act, act, act. So, karma sannyas ka gyan ye hai that you do actions with a totally detached mind, perform actions with a totally detached and selfless attitude. That is the karma. So, swapna karak cannot be a karak, as I'm saying, is that whatever action you have done in the dream, that cannot have results. That was illusion, isn't it? So, how can it translate into the material world? It cannot. No? So, when you are performing an action without any motive, then you are not the doer. And if you are not the doer, the result of the action cannot come to you. Okay. So, when this kind of a thing happens, then you say, so how does one gain this precious knowledge? So, that is the next question, and come to the next verse. Next verse 34. Okay. Now, the verse 34, because the question then the student asks is that, okay, all this done. All the very, very difficult yagnas performed. Now the student is ready. Now then, how does one get this knowledge? The next verse says, Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninastatvadarshinaha. I will translate. Know that by long prostrations, by question and service, the wise who have realized the truth will instruct thee in that knowledge. Now, the wise will instruct thee in that knowledge. But what is it, how, and why will they instruct you? So they say that देखो यहाँ पे ये कह रहे हैं by long prostration. Prostration is a physical act of a student bowing to the teacher, or anybody who is younger or lower in any way, bowing to anybody who he thinks is higher than him, and that is called prostration. There is a Ashtanga Pranam that is done, and that Ashtanga Pranam, Sashtanga Pranam is done with all the limbs of the body, the mind, intellect, and the heart. So when you do that pranam, you mean I surrender not only my gross body to you, but I surrender even my mind, intellect, and my devotion to you with my heart. Unless and until a student does that, the knowledge will not flow into his heart. This knowledge is not of that paid teacher who gets a salary every month and the student demands the knowledge that I pay you and you teach me. That is not the situation over here. This knowledge has a condition. It does not have a fees. It has a condition. And that condition is long prostration. Long prostration means for a long duration of time, till he is totally with that knowledge. He has to still have that. This is an attitude. You need not physically prostrate to the teacher, but the mental attitude has to be there. You know, a lot of old people were there when Gurudev used to teach, and he never allowed them to even bend down and bow to him because they had back problems and they had stiff limbs and they couldn't bend and all that. So Gurudev used to, when he used to see an old person coming, he used to always say, "No, no, it's enough, enough, enough. I got your frustrations. Please sit on that chair." And he used to make them sit on that. Very, very considerate, very considerate. Now, see, he says through by long prostration, I told you this is an attitude. Number two, question by question. See, Hinduism is the only religion that allows questioning. I have said it again and again. And this uh, questioning of knowledge is respecting the student's intellect. If he is a bright student, he is bound to get certain doubts in his mind about this knowledge. If this is so, how come this? If that is so, how come that? Just like Arjun is asking. Even here, Arjun is asking. If in the Upanishads, there are the students asking. In the Bhagavad Puran, there are other seekers asking people. The people ask the Lord also in the Bhagavad. There are many questioners and many people who answer those questions. So questioning is a glorious tradition in Hinduism, and why it is so is that unless and until you respect the knowledge of the teacher, it will not flow down to you. You have to be totally in tune with the teacher. Your mind has to be in tune with the teacher. Somebody is teaching that you do not follow or you do not understand, or that it is not applicable to your life. It may be great academic work, but if it is not applicable to your life, you should, how do you accept it? The student will not accept it. An intelligent student will accept that which is, which will help him to rise, which will help him to come up to his teachers level. And so the water, when it flows from the higher to the lower, so does knowledge. The attitude of a person who's asking for something, his hand has to be upturned. The giver's hand is always downturned as giving, which is the teacher. The student's hand has to be upturned. And that is why in Hindi, Sanskrit, he is called a Vidyarthi. Vidyarthi means beggar for knowledge. Now, if you are begging for something, how can you have an attitude? You can't have a stiff attitude and also be asking. No, you have to humble yourself to get knowledge. And that is the reason why this is. So, now, next, the third condition that he gives is sevaya. Pariprashnena, that is questioning, and sevaya, that is the third condition. Sevaya means serving the teacher. Now, serving the teacher is just, see, don't take it literally. Gurudev used to say, I'm quoting his words, he used to say, not flower throwing and laddu stuffing. You don't have to stuff the teacher with food or throw flowers at him. People used to even throw flowers at Gurudev. Gurudev used to say that that is throwing. If your hand is higher and you are throwing lower, you are giving. So even offering a flower to a teacher has to be done with an upturned hand. That is offering. There is a difference. Giving and offering. So when you give to anyone who is higher than you in any way, whether in knowledge or in age or in position, anything, you offer it with an upturned hand, right? Not give it. So throwing flowers, as North Indians do it a lot, when they go to a temple, they will take flowers. If the idol is far away, they'll throw it like that at the idol, which is really horrible. You are supposed to upturn your palm and slowly offer it at the feet. If the idol is far away, give it to the Pandit and ask him to offer it at the feet of the Lord, but not throw. Hmm? So Gurudev used to use this word flower throwing and a laddu offering is not seva. Of course, the physical needs of the teacher were looked after by the student in those olden days. Yes, definitely, because the teachers did not charge a fee. So it was the duty of the student to look after the body of the teacher and his comfort so that the teacher can teach. Gurudev हम लोग को कहते थे, he used to say this to us, that if you need my body, look after my body. If you don't need it, leave it. I don't care. It will fall. So if you need it, you look after that body. That was seva. But here, seva has not only physical meaning. Seva is not only physical. Seva is, uh, um, attunement to the teacher, living what the teacher has taught, trying to honestly question your mind about your motives, about the goals that you pursue in life, and tuning yourself to what the teacher has taught and trying to live those values that the teacher has given out. That is true service to the teacher, which will lift you from the lower to the higher plane of existence, because that will compel transference of knowledge. So, students' duty is to serve, and the teacher's duty is to teach. This is very clearly given out over here. And he says that, see, these three again, long prostration, I have told you, it's an attitude of humility, questioning, pariprashnena, and sevaya, service. So, service, yeah, see, questioning also, when you question a teacher, there are a whole lot of things listed in the Shastras of how you should question. These days, people are questioning by WhatsApp, people are questioning by email. Well, okay, that is the need of the hour, and teachers are responding to that need of the hour also. But the actual way of questioning is, you first see an appropriate time when the teacher is free, when the teacher is free to answer, and the teacher is ready to answer, he is pleased to answer. After that, you humbly put your question to him and wait for his response. And when he answers, he chooses his time to answer the question of the student he wants to answer. Many teachers do not even answer the question when they think that the student is not fit enough to receive. These kind of, so the questioner does not have to be arrogant. Arrogant questioner is what? Arrogant questioner is the one who thinks he is superior to the teacher, and what he is questioning, the teacher doesn't know, judging the teacher by his question or propagating his own knowledge by the question. There are people who go on and on and on and on questioning, and they refuse to they refuse to listen to the teacher because they think that there is a match going on. And whatever the teacher says, they refute and they say, no, I have not understood. No, no, even this I don't accept. Even this I don't accept. Well, that student remains where he is. He can never, never rise. Now, let's come to the verse 35. Verse 35 says, Yajnatva na punarmoham evam yasyasi pandava yena bhutanyasheshena drakshasyaatmanyatho maye. He says, knowing that you shall not, O Pandava, again get deluded like this. Now, see, he uses that and this. This Arjun was deluded. So he says, you will not get deluded like this once you know that knowledge. That knowledge means knowledge of the Supreme and knowledge of your true self. It is self knowledge. So when you get to know the knowledge of your true self, you will never, never get deluded again. You'll never get, and by that you shall see all beings in your own self and also in me. That means the entire world of objects, emotions, thoughts, and beings will dissolve into that plane of consciousness. You will become one. You will become one with the entire universe. Just as self-pervading, it is the Brahma is self-pervading. Huh? See, here the teacher is not changing the situation for the student. Krishna is not changing the situation for Arjuna. Hmm? And he is saying that after you get this knowledge, you shall not, O Pandava, again get deluded like this. This is what he is saying over here. Now, what is the test of being realized? Yaj Gyatva means after knowing. After knowing this, that means Yaj Gyatva, knowing that. Hmm? Not intellectually knowing. See, knowing also has got a various meanings in English. Knowing, I know that person. Huh? He's an acquaintance. Even if you have heard of somebody, you know that person. Hmm? Not in the Christian sense of then Adam knew Eve, not that sense. So there are many senses of knowing. Here, what does it mean? Here he says that after knowing means not only of intellectually assimilating, but living that value, totally digesting that value and transforming your personality to live that value. That is called knowing. So, unless you for certain have known and you have grown fully and become mature to this knowledge, you will never understand this. You will understand it only intellectually. Okay, there is a supreme reality which is everywhere, which is indestructible, which is this, which is that, which is timeless, which was never born, will never die. With all that, you will understand. You have heard it many times. Okay, now, but that is not knowing. Knowing is a person who is living in it, who can never leave it. His mind never leaves that plane of consciousness that he is the true reality. He is not this body. That kind of knowing is what Krishna is advising over here, that the student. Now, the student's doubt is this, that okay, no matter how much a teacher explains, and no matter how much a student has even probably learned. Hmm? But he has not reached the door. He has not reached the ultimate reality. Hmm? So, and he dies. So then all that knowledge gets lost and he starts from scratch again. Hmm? Now, Krishna emphatically states over here that once known, he says, you can never be deluded again. That means that even in your next, not only in this birth will you be never deluded, you know for sure. Dekho, I'll give an example. Supposing there is a man who's drunk, a pole somewhere. He thinks that is a human being and he starts dancing with that pole. Okay. He's dancing with that pole thing, imagining that pole to be another human being. But once he comes to his senses, that means the effect of alcohol escapes him. He comes to his senses. Will he again dance with the pole? Ever? Tell me. He will feel stupid doing it. He will never dance with that pole again, with that pillar again. Okay, then the second question that arises over here is how long should the student depend on the teacher? That is the question that arises. Should this teacher student thing keep on continuing, keep on continuing? Hmm? They say, okay, how long should I hold the apron strings? Gurudev says apron strings of the teacher. That means dependent on the teacher. Gurudev says that you are totally dependent on the teacher for your progress. So it is like somebody who is teaching you driving. Have you seen those coaches who come to teach you driving? In their car, they are always there to see that you do not make an accident, you do not make a wrong turn, you do not press the brake when the accelerator is to be pressed, and opposite of that, they also see that you give the indicator when it is needed, you give the lights when they are needed, you do this or that or whatever has to be done. If constantly he is teaching you, supposing he stops teaching you thinking that, oh, you know, or you stop taking his teaching thinking that, no, I know enough, you are bound to crash. You are bound to meet with an accident. So he says that you are completely dependent on the teacher, on the guide, till you totally are established in that truth forever and ever. He says, hang on to the teacher. Gurudev used to say, just hang on to the teacher, don't leave him till you are absolutely realized. Because from the elementary stage, he slowly takes you higher, 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 and he deals with your very subtle and delicate ego problems on the way. Most of the problems are ego problems that come on the way, and he deals with those problems sometimes sweetly, sometimes lovingly, sometimes harshly, because that is the need of the time to bring the student to his senses. So, like you, if you have seen that film of Gurudev's life, you will notice that even Swami Tapovan did that with Gurudev. He used to attack his ego many times so that he comes to to test him, that how much has his ego gone. So, even while cycling, have you seen, in when somebody is learning cycling, there is a father or a teacher or somebody running along with the cyclist, that if he falls he can catch him, if he is falling anywhere or losing balance he can steady him. So that is the job of the teacher, and that is what the this verse is saying, that you should be with the teacher right till then. ॐ पूर्णमद पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरि ओम, श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम।